everyone. Wonderful to be here to continue our study on the Ten Commandments. This morning we're going to start our study in the book of Chronicles. If you will look there. I don't believe we've started there since we began this series, and there is a beautiful prayer that I want for us to see as we set a foundation for the 8th commandment. David prays a beautiful prayer after he has spoken to the people about generously giving for the building of the temple. And after so much is brought in through the power of the Holy Spirit, David's overwhelmed at what God has done. So 1 Chronicles 29, verse 10, David praised the Lord in the presence of the whole assembly, saying, "Praise be to you, O Lord, God of our father Israel, from everlasting to everlasting. Yours, O Lord, is greatness and power, and the glory and the majesty and the splendor. For everything in heaven and earth is yours. Yours, O Lord, is the kingdom. You are exalted as head over all. Wealth and honor come from you. You are the ruler of all things. In your hands are strength and power to exalt and to give strength to all. Now, our God, we give you thanks and praise your glorious name. But who am I, and who are my people, that we should be able to give as generously as this? Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. We are aliens and strangers in your sight, as were all our forefathers. Our days on earth are like a shadow without hope. O Lord our God, as for all this abundance that we have provided for building you a temple for your holy name, it comes from your hand, and all of it belongs to you. I know, my God, that you test the heart and are pleased with integrity. All these things I have willingly given with honest intent." Wow. God makes it very clear through David for our understanding that we, you and I, own nothing. Everything that exists belongs to him. What we return to God, we are returning because he has empowered us by the jobs that we have and the abilities that we have that he has given. He allows us to give it back to him. How awesome is the Lord? He doesn't expect us to manufacture anything. You and I don't have the ability to manufacture faith, to manufacture generosity. We are selfish to the core. And we're going to be looking at the problem, the root of the problem, as we did with each commandment. We looked at the first 4 commandments, how to love God. The 5th one, addressing, honoring parents, and really deeper, parents teaching their children God's ways. The bridge to how to love others comes from the teaching of parents. We understood that God wanted us to honor life. Do not murder. Honor life. Respect life. The next commandment last week was honor marriage. Respect your bodies. They are God's temple. And today we're looking at respecting what belongs to others. And we're going to look at the root of the problem, like we looked last week. The root of adultery was lust. The root of stealing is greed. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 5:19. Just forward a few books, right after Psalms and Proverbs, in Ecclesiastes chapter 9. Chapter 5. The book of Ecclesiastes, a huge sermon by the King Solomon. We're going to look at verse 18. Then I realized that it is good and proper for a man to eat and drink and to find satisfaction in his toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life God has given him, for this is his lot. Moreover, when God gives any man wealth and possessions and enables him to enjoy them, to accept his lot and be happy in his work, this is a gift of God. Part of not taking things that don't belong to us and not getting caught in the trap of greed is to be happy with our lot. God gives us our lot. God hasn't made any one of us here our lot to become ultra wealthy from designing computers, as some have. That's not our lot. He gave that lot to someone else. And we can look around at the lots that God has given people, and we can look at our lot, and we need to be happy with what God has given us. We own nothing. When you look at the riches that someone else has that far surpasses what you have, they didn't acquire that on their own. God has given them that, and you know what? The more we have, the more we're accountable to God for. We are but stewards. We are managers of what God has given us. We're not just given so that we can just lavish ourselves. God gives to his people for very specific reasons. And you and I, like the parable of the talents where God gave 2, 5, and 10, and he said, go and I'm going to leave and go take care of what I'm leaving you in charge of. Didn't matter how much he gave them. Some he gave a little, and to some he gave a lot. What he was interested in was faithfulness, period. Because the reward was the same whether they had a little bit or a lot. Faithfulness was what the master was looking for. That is what God is looking. And how can we be faithful if we are unhappy with our lot? Never having enough, never being satisfied. Let's go into the New Testament, to the book of Luke. Chapter 12. Starting at verse 14. Well, we'll just start at 13. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or arbitrator between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out. Be on guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist of the abundance of his possession." Unfortunately, that's what life has become for most people, is acquiring more and not being satisfied, because we forget that we are not owners. If I die today, what good will anything that I have, what good will any of it do me? Because I'll move on, as has been the cycle of life. That's what Solomon's talking about in the book of Ecclesiastes. To just work to have more and more and more, then you die, someone else spends all that you worked for. Our focus cannot be on acquiring more and more and more, because more and more feeds on itself and it's never satisfied. Greed is a very strong emotion and it is never satisfied. The need to have more. Learning to live day by day, trusting God, is what he is looking for us to do. As he says here, jump down to verse 22. Jesus said to the disciples, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. Life is more than food, and the body more than clothes. Consider the ravens. They do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable are you than birds? Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Consider how the lilies grow. They don't labor or spin. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today, and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, how much more will he clothe you, O you of little faith? Do not set your heart on what you eat or drink. Do not worry about it. For the pagan world runs after such things, and your Father knows that you need them. But seek his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out, treasure in heaven that will not be exhausted, where neither thief comes near, no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." We are not owners of anything. We are managers for the time that we live on this planet, and God will demand an accounting of how we have used all that he has given us. So it is very serious that we go before the Lord and look clearly at "thou shalt not steal." Go with me to Exodus chapter 20. I keep going back to what God was building in this nation of priests, this holy nation, these holy people, these people that he was calling to understand his ways. And he tells them in verse 15, "You shall not steal," because in order for a community to function, there must be trust and loyalty. What would life be like if people started taking things from each other that didn't belong to them? Yet, that is the world that we live in. God is also demanding that parents teach their children to respect the property of others. Children learn at a young age and need to learn at a young age. This is not yours. You may not touch this. When we go into someone's home, you may not run through the bedrooms and open up closets and drawers. That is not yours. Even in teaching children in the classroom, they understand these things. This is teacher's desk. This is not for the children. They need to learn a distinction between the things that are mine and things that are not mine. It starts young. And if we don't set that foundation, we grow a generation after generation of people that want something and they plot to take it. I think it is so amazing of God that he set up an entire system. When you are looking for something to really dig into, studying the first 5 books of the Bible, it's just mind-blowing what God set up. And we're not going to go into Leviticus 25. I just want to tell you, God set up a way to deal with the accumulation of wealth so that every tribe had what they needed. Remember, the tribes each got a parcel of land, and except for the Levites, they depended on people being generous to provide for them. And if the Levites are doing their job and bringing holiness and righteousness before the people by example, the people in turn are going to do what they need to do, and God's purpose is fulfilled. Well, you know, as life is, people mismanage their money and squander their money, and sometimes it became necessary for them to sell off the land. The land was the most valuable thing that they had. God had given them a piece of this land in the promised land. So God made a way if the land got sold for paying of bills, of responsibilities, that in the year of Jubilee, every 50th year, the land went back to the rightful family. Period. It is so awesome that the generation that was not a good manager of money, by the time it's, 50 years is a long time. By the time you're getting near that, the generation's about to turn over. And so the new generation has an opportunity to learn to do the right thing and manage their finances well. God set that system up. He also set up that if you've sold your land and you've sold your possessions and now there's nothing else to sell, guess what you get to do? You get to go work it off. You become a slave to work off your debt. Wow. What if that principle was in play today? I don't have money, I got to go work to pay off my debt. However, with God, Hebrew slaves were freed every 7th year. So it is so awesome how God set up a system to where nobody really ever got way too much and nobody ever got way too little. If the faithfulness was kept by his people, he provided everything in nature for them to grow their crops, for their livestock to flourish, for them to have everything that they needed all the time. And he made also the nations surrounding Israel to fear them so that they wouldn't come in and try to take what God was giving them. So they had safety. Wow, what peace. That's worth more than anything else, not to have to be worried about who's going to come destroy my crops and take my stuff. God required faithfulness. If you will be my people, I will be your God. I know that no one here has ever entertained armed robbery or to steal cars and sell parts. So most Christians look at thou shalt not steal. Check. No problem. Let's move on to the next thing. I've got that one down. But today I want to challenge you to look at this commandment in a deeper way. And I want to look at ways that maybe we've all been thieves. I know I have. Let's look at a few. I wrote down a few things that we can think about as we kind of sink into this study. How many of us, when we've gone out to eat, and there's the big pile in the middle of all the little condiments, all those cute little packages of sweet and lows and sugar and ketchup and mustard and plastic cutlery, have, when we're eating, opened up our purse and put a few extras for later on, for lunch tomorrow. Guess what that's called? Stealing. It's called stealing. How many of us have been on a trip and gone into a hotel where they have complimentary shampoos and conditioners in case you forgot yours? They're there. But we made a habit of collecting those. So, wow, I have my shampoo, but I'll just take these and put them in my luggage because when the maids come, they'll set new ones out. Woo, look, more. By the time you leave after a week's stay, you've got a whole suitcase full of shampoos, conditioners, and soap. Guess what that's called? Some people even take batteries out of remote controls. And towels. You know how much hotels lose? people taking whatever is not nailed down to the floor? Well, they say they charge too much anyway, so I deserve to take these things. The restaurant overcharges me. Of course, the restaurant made you come eat there, right? The restaurant overcharges me, so I take some of these things to offset my cost. Have you ever been to the 7-Eleven to get a drink, a soft drink or tea or whatever, and you fill up your cup and you leave, and that's what you get. But first, you fill it up and you drink all that you can, and you fill it up again and you drink some more. You drink until you can't drink anymore, then you fill it up, then you put the lid on, then you go and pay. And you didn't pay for the part you put in your belly. Or maybe at the grocery store, we need to sample things before we buy them. Let's taste some grapes. Let's taste some strawberries. No, I don't really like those either. Let me go over here and sample the blueberries and the raspberries. And we go on a sampling party. And the food that goes in our stomach, we walk out the store with. Guess what that's called? It's called stealing. It's taking what's not yours. It's taking someone else's property and not paying for it. How about the workplace? How do we steal there? Paper clips, toner, you name it. They got lots of it. Corporations lose thousands of dollars. Even people that steal toilet paper rolls on a regular basis. Taking big purses with them to work. Constant stealing. And guess who that costs? The consumer gets to pay for that. It's called stealing. How about the practice of going to a clothing store, buying something for a specific event, wearing it, making sure the tags are tucked in so that then the next day you can take it back. When you get a refund and you take that money, guess what that's called? Stealing. Downloading music without paying for it. Happening every day. You go through the bank or you're at a place and you pay and you wind up with extra money. The bank gives you extra money. Woohoo, my lucky day. So glad she couldn't count today. If we keep extra change that doesn't belong to us, guess what that's called? Stealing. How about buying something on sale and then going and returning it for full price? Stealing. There are countless ways that people steal every day. Never, ever would they even admit or come to see it as stealing has become a way of life. There is justification of why we need to take from those that have more than they really need. We're actually doing them a service. Go over a few books to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 25. Stealing has a sister. Her name is cheating. Deuteronomy 25, verse 13. Do not have two differing weights in your bag, one heavy, one light. Do not have two differing measures in your house, one large, one small. You must have accurate and honest weights and measures so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. For the Lord your God detests anyone who does these things, anyone who deals dishonestly. You'll find this language of using two different weights a lot in the Old Testament. And when merchants sold things, and things are sold by weight, they would, of course, stack the deck on their behalf. So if they were going to sell a pound of sugar, they would have a weight that was heavier so that they wouldn't have to put so much in there. So really, instead of them having a pound of sugar, they're maybe getting 7/8 of a pound. So that extra 1/8 of a pound they can sell, and time after time again, that adds up. Stealing and skimming just a little bit. And of course, then when the opposite is done, you're selling the same thing. You use a different weight to make sure that you don't give away as much. So you're either getting more or giving more, but never being honest. And God says that is unacceptable. Cheating is unacceptable. He finds it detestable. And I wanted to think about ways that we cheat. How are we stealers and swindlers? Well, I'll bring one of the biggest ones up. How do any of us cheat on our taxes? Do we use creative accounting? Instead of rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's? Didn't even Jesus pull money out of a fish's mouth to pay what he owed? How about when we are creative with our numbers on applications to make sure that we get the loan or get the credit card or get whatever it is we're looking for? Cheating. Cheating on a test. That's stealing a grade. Selling something for more than it's worth. It's stealing. It happens all the time. Growing up in South Texas, we were constantly preparing for hurricanes during hurricane season. And anytime a hurricane came close enough, you had to get ready. That meant you went out and bought plywood to board your windows, lanterns, candles, batteries, because when it hit, there'd be no electricity. And lo and behold, as soon as the demand went up, if you could buy a sheet of plywood for $10, it's now $50. And on and on and on. Cheating, swindling. How about paying unfair wages to someone who needs money? Someone is desperate for finances, and you have a parcel of land that needs to be mowed, and the going rate would be $100, and you offer to pay $20. Cheating. How about employees on the clock? How many employees on their employer's time surf the internet, make phone calls, do texting, chit-chat, being paid on the clock, being paid for time with which they're not working? Employers lose millions and millions of dollars from employees that are stealing, taking money that they did not earn. And how about you and I? How many times have we taken credit for God's ideas and taken the glory from Jesus? Go with me to Proverbs 30. Move forward. Proverbs 30, verse 8. We'll start at 7. 2 things I ask of you, O Lord. Do not refuse me before I die. Keep falsehood and lies from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread. Otherwise, I may have too much and disown you and say, who is the Lord? Or I may become poor and steal and so dishonor the name of my God. Many people who steal aren't really in need. They're in want. The majority of people who steal are not in need. They're not stealing a loaf of bread for their hungry children at home. They're not going into a field and gathering up corn and tomatoes because they have babies that are crying from hunger. People that steal, the people in our world, in this grand United States, steal because they are greedy. They want more. They are not satisfied with their lot. And the devil tempts to take and weaken